Call the Mars City Council regular meeting together Tuesday, April 1st, 12 p.m. Could we please stand and join us in pledge allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Bev, could we have roll call, please?
Nelson?
Yes.
Knapp?
Yes.
Rexico?
Yes.
Goodchild?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I'd like to welcome, first of all, the people that are watching over television at home, and I'd like to welcome our people here in the chamber and our representative from the Lamar's Daily Sentinel, Bennett. Okay, general discussion. The way we handle our general discussion is if you have any concerns, compliments, complaints, or anything, we ask you to step up to the podium, state your name and address, and the council cannot make any decisions, but they're always willing to listen to what you have to say. Anybody on general discussion today? If not, we'll move along. John?
Nothing, Your Honor.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Delana?
I would like to give a thumbs up to our entire public safety, all of the departments involved in that, fire, ambulance, police, everybody has to pull together. It's been very busy lately, and also to the employers who allow the volunteers to get off of work to go and serve the needs of the community.
I would second that all the way, and particularly our employers that allow these representatives to go off on their time. So, and we've got a good public safety program going here in Mars, be it the EMS people, the fire people, the police people, and they work together as a team, and that is so important to this town. Rex?
Yep. I had the pleasure to attend the Floyd Valley Hospital groundbreaking for their new addition. It looks like it's already under construction there, and they've only put in, I think, 1/3 of the wells. They got like 100 in the ground, and they got 200 to go or something like that. But we had a good turnout on Wednesday night. The addition's going to be $27.4 million. A lot of people worked hard for it. I was particularly proud that we had people from the hospital, people from town, and people from the county all want to attend that groundbreaking. From this council and from you citizens, we're given $3 million of local option sales tax, and I think that's particularly significant. So that's my thumbs up.
Thank you, Rex. Ken?
Pass today, thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving on to consent items. All items listed under consent agenda will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion on those items unless a request is made prior to the time the council votes on the motion. Today, we've got 6 of them. First one is the approval of the March 18th, 2014 regular meeting minutes. Number 2 is a list of bills, a period ending 3/31/14. Number 3 is a renewal of liquor license for Strati and Red Hankey. Number 4 is a consumer confidence report, CCR, the Lamar's Water Department. Number 5 is the interfund transfer resolution. And number 6 is appointments. Does any council members have any questions on any of these?
On number 6, what's our fill in the blank for
Okay.
who's filling the unexpired term?
I'm glad you brought that up, Delana, because that's in my category. And first of all, we reappointed Larry Richtey for another 5-year term expiring December 31st, 2018 on planning and zoning. The appointment to fill an unexpired term for Meg Tenniger with the term expiring December 31st. Meg resigned as of a week ago. And to be very honest with you, I've not had the time to find somebody to replace her yet.
Okay, so we'll cross that off and visit that later then.
We'll visit that later, that's right. I'm glad you brought that up.
Motion to
And the
approve.
other one was the reappointment of Richard Porter for another 4-year term. I visited with Richard and he's agreed. The Siouxland Regional Housing Authority, I've met with Bob Burgett for the 2-year term to replace Shane Sitzman.
You're still voting to replace, or to re-put Larry on the board, right?
Right,
Yeah, okay.
right, that'll be.
You're just crossing off the one. Right, everything but the one.
So 2 appointments, 1 appointment, and then we'll deal with the unexpired term later.
Right.
And I assume the CCR is gonna go up front, because when I walked in this morning, it was this 2012 one that's up front in our entryway. So we need to kind of get that updated to the new report, right? For water quality, since we never did it for 2013.
Water quality is part of
It's being printed now.
this.
Right, but I'm saying we can take out the 2012 ones that are up there right now, right?
Yes.
I mean, we should get rid of those and put these up there, right?
These will be slid in its place.
Okay.
Both here in the library and on all the different access points.
That's your question, Rex?
Yep.
One question, do you,
Yeah.
so, with Meg's unexpired term, does that put that committee on hold for now, or can it move forward without? It can, there's enough,
What we'll do is we'll have somebody replaced at the next council meeting,
sure,
and there's enough on there to,
move forward.
Move forward.
All right, cool.
Probably just a better chance of a tie vote.
Yeah, that's true.
On the liquor license for Strata, they don't have all their gram in order, so it have to be subject to completion of the paperwork.
I think that's what Kenny was gonna say.
Yeah, motion to approve the consent items with acknowledgement that we're waiting on a permit for Strati, is it, how I pronounce it? And the appointments as we understand them.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
Could we have a roll call on that, Ben?
Knapp,
Yes.
Goodchild.
Yes.
Westfinkel,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Burton.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Moving on to the next one, the action items. Number 1 is the Public Works Building Project. The Public Works Building Project, at March 18, 2014 meeting, the council held a public hearing and set this date to award a contract for the building. The previous schedule was the council set public hearing on March 4th, which we did. Public Works staff conducted a pre-bid meetings, March 13th, which we did. Council hold a public hearing on March 18th, which we did. The Public Works Committee reviewed building types and bids on March 27th, which it did. And the remaining schedule was the council award the building, and I want to emphasize just the building, on April 1st, which is today. Going down the road, the Public Works Committee received and maintenance, electrical, and concrete bids on April 10th. The council awarded the M&E and concrete bids on April 15th. The work previously accomplished includes the site layout, the building layout and sizing, the earthwork and grading to the proposed elevation of the buildings, the stormwater detention placed in the northeast corner of the site, the storm sewer extended into the site, utilities are current, adjacent to the site within the street right-of-way. The Public Works Committee have their recommendation available at the meeting following the final review of the bids and building types on Monday, March 31st, which they did. The financial impact is a source of funding for this project has previously been approved as a Lamar's Urban Renewal TIF renewal. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Wilchin, who is our project manager for this project on the buildings. And Ryan, would you share with us the bids?
Thank you, Dick. Just a little recap. Bid invitations were sent out to 4 pre-engineered building suppliers. Each building supplier received a rough floor plan, building elevations, and a summary of the project. Each supplier was giving a 1-hour presentation in front of the building committee. Since all pre-engineered buildings are different by nature, bidders were informed that the recommendation to the council would be based on the following criteria: cost, durability, quality, efficiency, R-value, appearance, and maintenance. During this bidding process, it was a challenge of the building committee to put all buildings on the same playing field. This was done with our add and deduct options listed on our bid tab. Before reading the bid results, I would like to thank all building suppliers for their time and efforts. All building presentations were unique in nature and very professional. At this time, I'd like to read off the bid results. Bidder 1, I'll list them off in the timeframe with which they were presented. Our first presentation was from EPS Buildings. They presented a base bid of $541,211. In the options to get an R33 R value on the walls was standard. The R value at the roof was an additional $20,160. To add an interior metal liner was $23,892. The interior sheeting, 8 foot above finish floor, is standard. The interior liner at salt storage is an add of $37,500. This product does not have any snow dampers, so none were provided. This comes to a total of $622,763. The next bid was from
Ryan.
Hard Steel. Their base-
Ryan, explain to them what the snow dampers were.
The snow dampers are snow stops at the edge of the roof during the snow season. It prevents the snow from falling on people, cars as you enter the building.
Thank you.
There is, just to sum that up, there was only one building supplier that did offer that as an option item. Hard Steel was the next building supplier. Their base bid was $616,615. R value for their walls to increase to a R value 28 was $28,314. Their standard R value for the roof for an R28 was $35,520. No interior liner provided, no interior sheeting provided, no interior liner storage was provided, and no snow dampers were provided, for a total cost of $680,449. Morton Buildings was the next bidder. Their base bid was $842,588. R value on their walls was a 30 at no cost, and their R value for the roof for an R44 was an additional $24,932. Their metal liner was standard. There was a deduct for the interior sheeting of $1,923. The interior liner at salt storage was included in their bid. And since they offered snow dampers, this was removed from their bid for $14,605, for a total cost of $850,992. The last building is from L&L Builders, Barco Pruden Building. Their base bid was $627,800. Their walls were an R30 for an additional $13,830. The R value on the roof was 38, and that is standard. Their interior metal liner is $12,326. To add 8 foot of sheeting to the interior was a deduct of $1,204. The interior liner at the storage was an add of $23,605 for a total project cost of $676,357. Those are the 4 presentations we received. In discussing with the building committee, it is their recommendation to award this project to the EPS building system.
Is that a system you've worked with before?
I've seen it, yes.
Okay. And one of your criteria that you said you presented to the bidders was appearance. How does the appearance differ between these 4 bidders?
Being all buildings are different, it was really up to the building committee to decide those. It took hours of discussions, but a few major ones were the type of roof, the screw fastening for the roof structure, Color was not an option. Interior finishes was an option. As I mentioned, some have metal liners and some do not. One building has a metal interior liner at the ceiling and another one does not. Multiple items were weighed by the committee.
So as the public drives by, what are they going to see? Is it going to be a metal shed, or is it going to be a fairly attractive building?
It represents the buildings of that area, so it'll be metal wall siding, a metal roof with a 4-foot or 3-foot brick veneer, similar to the buildings in that area.
3 foot, just at the base, 3 feet up, the brick. Okay.
Ryan, did we specify minimum R values?
In the discussions with the buildings and all the presentations, every building submitted their base installation package. After all the meetings with 4 buildings, was discussed that R value was a big item. Thus, I returned to all the suppliers and added for add options to increase to their most efficient building.
So like on hard steel, that R28 in the walls and ceiling, that is what they've actually, that's it, that's the bid with including the extras?
That is, yes, that is their standard, I believe, was an R14. We increased that to R28.
Okay.
And we couldn't equal up, we tried to get everybody as equal as we could. We couldn't get their ceilings up to an R40 as the other suppliers did. Their maximum was an R28.
Okay. So if we award a bid here for a building, then we get the materials and then we proceed to have a contractor?
This is labor included
This is turnkey erected?
for the building.
Okay,
Just-
not the
just the
floors or
frame.
anything like that, but turnkey erected for the structure?
The structure of the building, yes.
Just the building.
Right.
But it includes the doors for all of the bays?
No,
Those are all separate?
Yeah.
no concrete, no electrical, no doors, and no
Those-
plumbing.
Those are coming, right?
Yes. Yep.
The bids
Those are
on,
in the
as
works.
I understand, the bids on those, Ryan,
Just like the mayor, you read, on April 10th.
Yeah.
Mechanical, which includes HVAC and plumbing, electrical, and all the concrete, that will be coming in on April 10th, like the mayor read. You will rule on those items April 15th.
So this is the structure, and then,
Everything above the ground.
Right, but to me, the door is part of the structure.
Again, yeah, I would agree, but doors and windows and those kind of things are gonna be under a separate package.
Okay. But does EPS or whoever we award this bid to, I mean, we need to know exactly what doors are going in so that it can be framed out properly for those doors, I would assume.
All the frame outs are included.
Yes.
Okay.
All framing for the openings included. Most of the suppliers did supply a overhead door and window price with their bids, but it was up to the building committee to competitively bid those items separately. We'll get more bidders. We only have 4 bidders for the building. Now with the windows and doors being bid separate, we can get multiple bidders on
so
those items.
some of these bidders could conceivably get the door and window.
The building could, yes.
Okay.
So if EPS is awarded the project, they could supply it. They would be putting their doors and windows up against wherever else we can find to compete to bid on those items.
And it looks like we're still staying, I mean, it's difficult to approve this all in pieces and know if we're staying close to the estimated budget, are we? I mean, from what you've seen from the doors and window, all of those extras,
We're in the ballpark,
okay.
yes.
And the door, back to the doors and windows, will they be, will they match the requirements for the ceilings and walls? In other words, are we going to expect to get the same kind of R values out of those doors?
Yes, we haven't set the standards or specifications for those doors yet. That'll be upcoming in our building committee items. But it is expected to get the most insulated door we can possibly have. I think we're using an R13 as a base, or a 3-inch door as a base, which has an R13, I believe, of 13 or 17, I believe. So we're putting the most insulated doors to match the building we've bid out.
Okay, and are we also inquiring with Mid-American about potential rebates for this
Yes.
project? Okay.
Steve Hansen has already gone down there and
Okay.
visited with them.
Yeah, I know Steve's pretty well up to date on those rebate types, so good work, Steve. Good work, Ryan.
Thank you. Any other questions?
any other questions for Ryan? I'd entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion approving resolution number 14-10, awarding the contract to EPS Buildings in the amount of $622,763.80 for the Public Works Building project, and I will state there's no electric, no concrete, no plumbing, and I missed one other thing.
Mechanical.
Yeah,
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
and I made an error on the resolution, it's 1413, excuse me.
And where'd the 80 cents come from?
Yeah.
Where did the what?
He was getting excited, there's no 80 cents.
Oh,
We're not giving
Okay.
it, we're not giving it.
The next one was 1410.
See, we just saved money.
Motion been made and
Point
seconded.
of clarification.
Wait.
Oh, excuse me.
Wait, I don't think we got the right resolution.
It's 1410. You were correct.
No, there
No,
are,
There's two.
No,
But there's
there's-
1411, this would be 1412, right?
Three.
I've got
and
There are
the
three
first one.
resolutions,
I
Brad.
missed
Three up there in the consent items, John.
All right.
anyway, a clarification from
Scott's got to
Scott.
clarify.
Okay?
The EPS building is going to be handled in two contracts. EPS buildings for the material and Sitzman Construction for the labor. So I want that acknowledged in the motion.
And I'll add that to my motion, thank you.
Okay.
but with that total bid amount, right?
Correct, the
So
total
E-
is correct.
EPS Building and Sitzman Construction.
If the second will okay it.
Motion been made and seconded, adopting resolution number 14-13, is that right, Beth? Awarding the contract to EPS Building and Sitzman's Construction in the amount of $622,763 for the Public Works Building project, excluding the maintenance, electrical, and cement in this project. All those in favor say aye. No, I got a roll call on that. Roll call, Bill.
Reckwinkle?
Yes.
Surratt?
Yes.
Percy?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes,
Knapp?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Thank you, Ryan. We'll see you back here on the 15th or thereabouts.
I would comment as serving on that committee that all the contractors had very nice buildings.
Oh, they did.
And very nice presentations, and I think any one of them would have been a quality building for us.
No question. No question. That's a good point, Ken. And they made great presentations. It helped us to what we were buying for its quality. Okay, moving on to action items, the Code of Ordinance changes. The council held a public hearing and an informational meeting on March 18th, 2014, to hear public comment on public ordinance changes. The proposed ordinance changes are: the first one is a section number 69.10, winter parking restrictions. The way it reads now is eliminate odd and even parking between November 1st to April 1st, and change to no parking of any kind between December 1st to March 31st. Section number 90-5, compliance with the plumbing code, eliminating the International Plumbing Code and change the State of Iowa Plumbing Code. Number 3 is section number 91.04, location of meters, eliminates the need for outside remote readers. Section 105.11, prohibit practices, makes placing non-recyclables in a recyclable container finable. Section 105.05, open burning restricted, designates the fire chief and/or his designee as the sole issuers of open burning permits. Section number 135.11, maintenance of parking or terrace, and section 151.17, pruning and corner clearance, eliminates the city's responsibility for the removal of trees or portions thereof that lie within the public right-of-way and places it on the abutting property owner. Section 135.15, private irrigation systems within the right-of-way, allows for the placement of private irrigation systems in public right-of-way, but gives the city the authority to order the removal of the system or a portion thereof, and states that the city shall not be held liable for any damage caused to the system. Section 156.03, recreational fires, states the parameters for which recreational fires will be allowed. has been a policy of the city for years, but has never been in the code of ordinances. After saying all that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason Becerra, our code ordinance, our code enforcement officer, and if there needs to be changes, your thoughts, we can take each one separately if you'd like, or however you want to do it.
I just want to point out, I made 2 changes. What was presented originally in that packet that you all got a month and a half ago. After the informational meeting and the public hearings, there 2 points were brought up. And the first one had to do with the recyclables, that container. It originally had refuse. It was deposit refuse in a recyclable tote. They took refuse out and changed it to non-recyclables. Makes it a little bit clearer. The second change in that, but keep in mind though, that is changed, but it's not reflected in the ordinance that you have in your packet. Okay, so that'll have to be changed. You can put it in your motion as that can be changed. That'll be reflected in the second reading. The second thing I changed was a comment that was made at the informational meeting, the evening meeting, had to do with the private irrigation systems. It was brought up, it originally read, and I'll read it, it might make it a little bit clearer. Neither the city nor the holder of a franchise license or easement granted by the city shall have liability for damage caused to the irrigation system arising from work performed within the right-of-way. It was brought up at that meeting that, do we really want to take liability away from a utility company? I'm not going to name names, but anybody other than the city coming in and doing work in a right-of-way. We brought up that we're going to do our best to notify property owners of work so they can, remove or move irrigation systems. But we can't be guaranteed that a private utility company is going to provide notice to a property owner. So it's brought up, do we want to take that liability away and still hold them responsible so they can't just go into a right-of-way, start digging and start ripping irrigation systems out? So I changed it, and you can always change it back. It is reflected in the ordinance that's in your packet, but I'll read what is changed. The city shall not be held liable for damage caused to private irrigation systems within the right-of-way. Sufficient notice shall be given to owners of irrigation systems, except in the case of emergencies, before any excavation in the public right-of-way. So it went from city or holder of a franchise license or easement, and just went back down to the city.
Because the private ones have to notify the property owner anyway, correct? Or supposed to.
Well, a lot of times they may call Iowa One Call, in the 48 hours. Homeowners are gonna start seeing flags in the right-of-way. And they may start making calls to City Hall, which they do, and ask what's going on, type of thing. And we're not always aware, whether a company goes in and just wants to replace some line or something. We don't always know that until they start it, so. Some companies do, John, go door to door, or they'll have a mailing, they'll mail something to your home, notifying you.
But I'm thinking there, for instance, there are some commercial customers or whatever may have their own facilities in public right-of-way.
Yeah.
And if we just start digging or whatever, we should be notifying the property owner or the business owner for sure that something's going to happen. That should be a responsibility. I realize with all the privates, it's tough to keep track of it, but I think the ordinance should make anyone aware that if they're digging in the parking, they should be notifying the business owner or property owner prior to doing something.
When it does say sufficient notice shall be given.
But he's talking city.
That's city.
Well,
It doesn't
no, that's
specify that.
everybody.
It just
Okay.
that
says,
doesn't specify.
the city is specified in the prior sentence as
Okay.
far as not held liable, but the last sentence just says sufficient notice shall be given.
Okay.
So I would, that should be by anybody. So I like that change.
So those
Thank
are
you.
the two changes, otherwise everything is still the same as it was at the public hearing, the informational meeting.
So obviously, we still need to address winter parking restrictions.
Probably a good idea to talk
That's
about
up
it.
to you.
Yeah.
But I like the two changes that you did make. So now we just have to get rid of that first one and be set. I was on the initial one, after our 2 meetings and various conversations, Scott, you had indicated that we don't really, with some of the discussion that was being held, we don't necessarily need to do a completely revamped change of the ordinance. It would be a matter of enforcing it and just stating that we're going to enforce it from November until April. The other thing I was wondering, and maybe this is a question for Joe, to address the issue of, well, you didn't say I couldn't park in front of my driveway. Can we add a sentence that simply says that intentionally interfering with snow removal, such as parking in front of driveways, is ticketable?
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly add that, although you're gonna run into the problem if they're parked on private property at that time.
Well, the street isn't private property.
But
If they want to park in the front of their driveway, I mean, within their driveway, they can do that. They just can't park on the
Well, they can
street
do it
in
if
front
they
of their
don't block the
driveway.
sidewalk. Once they block the
Right.
sidewalk to do it.
Then they get a different
They
ticket.
get a different ticket.
But yeah, I see what you're, I mean, I would have room in my driveway to park my car parallel to the street, and if it's on my driveway, you couldn't do anything. But if I'm parked on the street in front of my driveway, that's city.
On the right, is that would be right away if they got that close to the street?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
And I think part of the issues with the snow removal is the question of whether or not the city calls a snow emergency. Maybe we just eliminate that part, just have the simple wording, odd even parking's in effect from November 1st to April 1st, period.
and we can go back to the way that Stu had
It was.
indicated the police department used to do it in November, you know, assuming there wasn't a snow right away. They would stick a little green card or something notifying people that odd even was in effect. It wasn't a ticket, but they can ticket whether there's snow or not.
And have the day start at 6 PM like it does now, because if you come home from work, have to park on the street, and then you have to get up at midnight and move the car to the other side of the street, that doesn't really make sense either. So establish like a 6 o'clock time period when the new day starts.
It's the first time.
I think that's what it says now.
That's what it says now.
Right.
My caution, and some of you can certainly chime in, from the days that we did enforce the ordinance we currently have, and we had a packed room in this building because we were issuing tickets when there was no snow on the ground over a Thanksgiving weekend, and a ton of out-of-towners that were being hosted by the various families got tickets. And people were extremely upset that they were all given these tickets when there was no snow and the situation didn't warrant it, but we had the date of November 1st. You know, Thanksgiving always falls the third week of November, so tickets were rightful to be given. We were within our jurisdiction of the ordinance, but I'm reminding you that that isn't a cure-all to people complaining that it's not a fair ordinance.
But if I heard Delana, I think her suggestion was is to hand out not a ticket, but a notice about odd even parking, and that this is not a ticket, but an informational. And
All winter long?
No, Stu said they just did that during that, like, the very first week or so
Oh,
of
okay.
November.
Well, that
I
would
think.
be the
Do you-
Thanksgiving
Is
period.
that right? That's correct. Yeah. It was just something that you stuck and it explained what the parking policy was, and then after that first week or so, then you started issuing tickets.
Usually 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay. So, I mean, that was something, and he said that that worked fairly well, and, at this stage, after the discussion and after some of the issues that have been brought to light, I think if we have people complain because somebody does get a ticket, and once again, the police do have leeway to waive that, to say, okay, you don't have to pay it. So they do have some discretion there, but I would, if we have a packed room again because people don't like getting, tickets because there's no snow during odd even, it's too bad. I mean, it's that or no parking, which would you prefer?
And
We just have to remember that Scott is right. We've had people here every time we've changed the ordinance, and they get unrightfully upset.
Right, and this,
Unrightfully upset. But the point is if we're gonna do it, we gotta enforce it.
right, this way we aren't changing, we're simply enforcing it.
Because then it can't be that you didn't listen to the radio, or you didn't hear from your neighbor, or you didn't get on Facebook at the right time. It's gotta be enforced all the time.
Right.
During those 4 months, 5 months, whatever.
And if a citizen has some company, maybe that, just remind the people that are coming to visit
I mean,
about the odd even.
That's his or her problem. I mean, it really is, because that's the only way we can have it consistent, so that when and if the snow does come, it's consistent. I think the ordinance, and I've read the one we had, and the one we had before that, and the one we had before that, I think they're all trying to get at the right point, but I think we've always tried to adjust a little bit to calm the masses. Is that a good way of saying it? Well, we have, right? We've tried to be flexible, and I think the flexibility has maybe caught up to us with the size of the equipment and the amount of times we got to go out and so forth. So I think we should just leave one the way it is written, the way it's been written, but we should say that one is going to be enforced.
And get rid of the during snow emergencies, just.
No,
say-
it's just going to be enforced,
Yeah.
period, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and this is certainly more palatable. I mean, we're concerned about a complaint or two. It's certainly more palatable than year-round, odd even, and no parking on the, or not odd, just no parking on the street.
Right, yeah, I mean, this is much better than that.
Could I ask Steve a question? Steve, if we changed it to start at 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock the night before, would our signs, our present signs, would they work, or would we need to alter those? Can't remember what it says on them.
Well, the ones downtown say 2 to 6, 2 a.m. to 6.
I'm talking about when you come into town and it talks about the
That's
snow.
6 o'clock,
6 PM.
yeah.
I think
Okay.
just keep that.
I think you should leave it the way it is myself.
My
Since nobody reads those
suggestion,
signs anyhow.
from what I heard from people, is for the cost of signs, and they're there forever, we should invest in some more signs in appropriate places around town where major traffic is, like 12th and Central, and certain areas of town that we know that we'd pick up more people seeing it, maybe in the mid-block, so it's not, being an obstacle to traffic. But I think we could invest in another 10 or 12 signs somewhere within the city. Steve probably would know best where to put them. But,
I think before we do that, let's just see if there are areas, when we go back to the ordinance as we're proposing, let's see where we have some issues. If there's an issue in a particular area, maybe we consider a sign.
Okay.
One thing that, and I share this, is when they get ready to start November 1st, sometime in October, not only blast the clam and the local newspaper, but one thing that worked in our recycling program was those little stickers that we put on refrigerators on what week to pick up to recycle and what week not. Make up a bunch of those, offer it to our citizens so they can stick it right on there. It will show them that, odd and even parking. And you might put on there that if anybody gets a ticket or gets towed, don't call the mayor.
That's a good idea up till that point.
Anybody got any more questions on that one?
Well, like I say, I'd like to propose we keep the ordinance we got, except remove the wording during snow emergencies.
And what about adding in for not intentionally interfering?
Yeah,
With
keep
snow
it simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Let's try
Well,
it
the only
without
thing
the-
about that, adding about the parking in front of your driveway, the gentleman that did bring that up, he said it was on the correct day of the week that he was doing that.
But he also said he wouldn't do it if we told him not to.
But what does it matter? If he's on if he's on the odd or the even during a snow event, he can park anywhere he wants on the odd or the even, whatever day it is. Why put anything in there? If he's on the wrong side, if he's interfering with the other side, obviously he gets a ticket. If he parks in front of his driveway, he's not interfering with a darn thing if he's on the correct side of the road for the day that it is, odd or even. Doesn't matter where he's parking, on the even side, if it's an even day to
Yeah,
be
but why
parking over there.
encourage bad behavior?
You know what? You can't train people that way.
Oh, yeah, you can.
No, you can't.
1 or 2 tickets, they're trained.
Yeah.
I think the police can handle that situation.
Yeah, we give-
I think you just leave it be. If he's parked on the correct side of the street, you keep it simple, stupid, because that's the way it's gotta be. And we just enforce it. 70 degrees, we get a room full of people. My guess is the next 70-degree day, we'll have less room full of people, and the next 70-degree day, we'll have even less. But we're probably gonna have a room full of people the first time. But like you
We hope it
said,
gets to
you know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, well, it's that or
keep it simple.
nothing.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the tree ordinance also. I think, first of all, we need to change an ordinance that we presently have in place. Jason, I believe it says now that they're allowed to plant one of 5 different trees in the parking,
Yeah, no doubt.
5 different species.
There's probably about 5 that they can't.
Okay,
There's, whether or not you're underneath overhead electric or something, I mean, there's small trees, then there's larger trees, but there's about 5, John, that you can't
Okay.
plant anywhere in town.
I would just like to propose no tree planting in the parking from here on. So if we've got issues, at least we aren't going to address issues in the future regarding new construction or wherever you're, no trees are considered to be allowed planted in the parking from here on. As a start.
Yeah, I drove by the new daycare, and there's trees lined along 6th there. I just happened to be coming by there today, and I noticed there's 6 or 7 trees laying there getting ready to be planted in that very area. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, why are we letting that happen? I concur.
The ordinance says they're supposed to come to City Hall and get permit.
Yeah.
But nobody does. We tried that, but we filled up this room with people upset that they couldn't plant in the parking, and we backed off at one time. You know, we tried to move forward on it, and then we got stampeded and it went by the wayside. I agree with you. I think it's stupid to tell people to plant them and then tell them.
And then have them get in trouble down the road later
Yeah,
on, so.
and they don't shade a house in the parking.
What if we address these 7 and get these done and then work on that?
Okay.
Is
Well-
that okay?
Yeah, then I'd like, but I was saying that might be a part of where we're dealing with
I
on this.
understand, but Kenny's right. We had 2 months
Okay.
of people in here saying, well, I want to plant this one, and that's not on your list. And then they
Okay.
got an Iowa State Extension survey that said they could plant certain ones, and they weren't going to be dirty and all this kind of stuff. It was quite a,
Okay, then
Quite a
back to my
mess.
concern on this one, I think with the ash borer coming in down the road, we're gonna have a huge problem. If these people, if the trees die in the parking, and the people don't have the money to have the trees removed, we're just gonna have a bunch of ugly, dead trees in the
well,
parking.
I think either the council or the utility committee could address that if that occurs.
Well, I did talk to Bill Cole yesterday. I stopped in for this very reason. And I guess right now the cost is 100% the city's cost, as it is. If we do nothing, it's 100% the city's cost. I would like to look into some sort of a cost sharing.
Agreed.
Where if Jason or his designee goes out and deems a tree that needs to be removed, that citizen would be required at their expense to remove that tree. And whether there's categories of smaller trees, medium trees, and large trees, but they could then, once that job is complete, stump ground and everything, they could come in and maybe get some sort of a $200, $300, $400 rebate in a cost share with the city once that job's complete. Because I agree with John, we've got some issues coming up. I'd feel really good about some sort of a shared program.
I have a question for Joe related to the trees, and we're going to talk about whether we do anything or not, but if we tell people that they are responsible for the trees, the tree dies, they have to cut it down at their expense, would there be anything in that ordinance that would prohibit a homeowner from cutting down a perfectly good live tree just because they're tired of raking leaves? Would they have it, are we giving them that authority at the same time?
This is in the new ordinance that we're putting up, or that we're talking, or?
No, I think what I'm saying is as we do it now, a tree is dead, we tag it and the city takes it down. We're saying that if a tree dies, the homeowner is responsible to hire somebody to take that tree down. Does that also give them the authority to take down a live tree because they're tired of raking maple leaves?
This ordinance does, but they can already do that.
They can take down
They
a
can-
tree in a
could have always
parking.
in the past, and they still can.
That piggybacks off they're supposed to apply for, and they're supposed to get a permit to plant a tree or remove any tree, whether it's on their private property or public right-of-way. They're supposed to get a permit to remove a tree. Nobody does. Okay? They don't cost anything to get a permit, so they don't get them. Okay? I know you talked about address it at a different time, but the eliminating all trees in the parking is fine, but I'm just thinking that from spring to fall, it's going to become a daily thing. How long does it take to plant a tree? Not very long, okay? It's going to involve having to check every single street, okay, almost every day. Because if you're going to notice some little stick sticking out of the ground, I mean, I can enforce it, but it's going to be a headache, I think.
I'm with Jason, I think we're trying to over-regulate.
And Birds and Wind plant a lot of trees in my yard.
Yeah.
And if I choose to mow
They just
around
say, "I
them,
didn't
then
plant
the
it, it
tree
just started
stays.
growing."
Yeah.
I think a point I tried to make
I don't
before
think
was somehow when a new home is built, that's the time for these people to be informed not to plant a tree in the parking or to get a permit from the city before planting in the parking. And I suggested that before when they get their occupancy, come down and say we're ready to move in our house, that would be the time for that general information, odd even parking, tree ordinance, whatever these things are, hand them a sheet of paper so they'd all get that information. At least we could eliminate it in the new housing areas.
That's a start, sure.
And not try to deal with it in what's already happened.
The proposed ordinance would allow you to trim or maintain or cut down
Okay.
a live tree.
I don't have a problem with that, I want to be clear.
When it's the city's responsibility to cut them down, and we use the definition of the 4 Ds, dead, dying, diseased, or dangerous, then it becomes argumentative with the property owner. They want it down, but it's a perfectly good tree, but since the cost is on the city, they want the tree taken. Yeah. I think it's a free world. Let them plant it as they see fit. Try to regulate the species the best we can, but they take them down. If they put them up, they take them down.
Well, and likewise, it was brought up,
I mean,
I bought the house, the tree was already there. However, you bought the house with the roof, the furnace, everything else that went along with that
Yeah.
house. The
Yep.
trees are part of it as well when you purchase that property. So,
I really think this one is not an unreasonable thing. In fact, it's giving more freedom to the private property owner. And why wouldn't we support that? Give them the freedom to do what they want, both to put them up and to take them down.
Even if they're dead, leave them up.
No, if they're dead and it's dangerous, we need an ordinance that they are violating the ordinance. You gotta take care of your property. You can't have dangerous situations out there. So then we would enforce that you have to take it down, because it's dangerous. And now, the danger is not only to their own private property, it's now to the traveling public going by our street. So, yeah, we could force them to take their tree down if it's dead and it's dangerous.
And that's in the way it's written, the owner shall remove trees or any portion thereof which constitute a menace to the safety of the public.
Yep.
Yes,
That's what you're referring to.
yeah. So that's the only regulation I think we need is, you can do what you want, but if it becomes dangerous, then you gotta deal with it.
And I'm not opposed to that, I just wanted to be clear that they could actually take a live tree down. I didn't know that. I'm fine with me.
Okay, we're making a motion approving first reading of ordinance 919. On section 6910, we are modifying during snow emergency, removing that wording. Everything else stays as is. The other 7 that as written are all going to change with Jason's wording on the 2 items that he said, and we're going to get new copies of that for the next council meeting for all 8 ordinances. So moved.
I second the motion.
I think it's fine that way. I think you could just remove, just take section 6910 out, because the way it's written right now, the wording snow emergency is not in there.
It's not in there now?
It's not in there.
Wait, you mean under the current, not the one that we're looking at, but the
Yep.
current?
Under what is in our
6910
code
right
right
now?
now, it says nothing about snow emergency.
Okay, so then you just got to get me 6910 along with the other ones so we can look at them for the second reading.
So the current 6910, the one
Just
we
stay in
currently operate under.
Do we want to address apparatus and trailers, unhooked trailers in that? Because that was all part of that too, right, Jason?
I think it's in there.
It was part of the new one.
It was part of the new one, and I've had people comment to me about they don't want unhooked trailers on streets.
I think we looked at that. It might have been for a different ordinance.
We're already
Or-
addressing that in a different ordinance.
It would have to be, look at the definition of vehicles.
The point is, if we leave it the way it is and enforce it, they got to move them every night for 4 months.
Yes, and for the other 8 months, they have to move them after 24 or 48 hours.
48 hours.
Right.
Which one is it?
Oh, it's 24?
24?
You can only leave any vehicle or trailer or any device in the public right-of-way at the same spot for a total of 24 hours.
And that doesn't even moving it 2 feet. That means,
Moving
You
it to the
gotta
other side of
move
the
it.
street.
that's right.
So that is a
I think
law
we just gotta
enforcement
address
issue that
those
we
two.
can ask the PD to take care of.
Yep.
Okay, all right, okay.
Okay?
So that's what we're doing. Got a second?
I seconded it.
Well, Rex, I support your motion. I agree what we're doing on winter parking, but I still support what Clark says about cost sharing on the trees, so I don't know how we,
Well, I
Get
think,
around
I
that.
think the cost sharing, if you want to do anything with cost sharing, I think that needs to be in that one that we do annually, that says how much the fees are for this, or fees are for that, or how much water rates are. We have to address it, but if we're going to address it, it's got to be in something like that that gets done all the time. So that we don't have it in there at $300 forever in an item, if we're
Right.
going to do that. If we're going to do that.
But
But
I
I don't
think-
think it's an ordinance.
but should the ordinance not reference the fact that there is a,
I don't think it has to.
I think it opens up a can of worms according to what size tree it is even.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I'd like to get these ones done and then maybe address that, is what
All
I
right.
guess I'm
You're
looking
not
at.
changing 6910 at all.
Nope.
no,
But he's gonna give us a copy of 6910 for the next meeting, so we can make sure that every word in there is the way we want 6910 to be enforced.
we have 2 more times to go through this
we,
anyway.
Yes.
so-
twice we can.
Well, you actually
change it.
have 2 more times and a vote,
Right,
Yeah.
right? So you could do 3 if you wanted to.
right, okay.
Okay. Motion made and second. Approving the first reading of the ordinance number 1919, modifying or adding section 6910, and all those,
No, this is 919, yeah.
Yeah, but we're not doing 6910, basically. We're doing all the rest of them.
doing 90.05, section 91.04, section 105.05, section 105.11, section 135.11, section 135.15, section 151.17, and section 156.03 of the Lamar's Code of Ordinances, as Rex pointed out. You got all that, Bev? Do we have a roll call on that?
Wolfson?
Yes.
Jim Childs?
Yes.
Rex Winkel?
Yes.
Knapp?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Motion passed. Thank you for.
So now, next, 2 weeks from now, we get to see what we ended up
Yeah.
with, right?
Mayor, one clarification then.
Okay.
If you delete consideration of any changes to 6910, a reminder, you will need to, at some point along this process, have a simple motion, I believe, but we'll check that, now that you've deleted that from consideration. You need a motion lifting the moratorium of enforcement.
Right, I agree.
Right.
I agree, but that's why I wanted to
You
see
don't
what it
do that
said.
by ordinance, you just need a simple motion of the council to direct the.
But that's why we need to see what it says, so we make sure we're lifting it right.
Let's say at the next meeting or the
Okay,
next two.
very good.
And Jason, it's probably a good idea just to, as you're pulling up that 6910, so that we have the current to look at with the next reading. If it only says vehicle, we may want to add some of that language that you had in here, just to specify no parking on that side of the street of anything from November until April 1st.
And I want it to be very clear that I was not calling Delana stupid. It is the.
We thought that made a really good headline.
The
Good
KISS
child
the-
calls
the-
Erky
The KISS
stupid.
method is keep it simple. Not calling.
He did a good job getting it in the paper and the radio real fast.
Headline.
We'll make it very clear.
Okay, moving on. Discussion. John?
Last meeting, I brought up asking city staff to look into weekly garbage pickup since the warmer weather's hitting in the summer. I'd like to see, I guess, next council meeting, an agenda item to address that.
We have a meeting scheduled the 8th, I believe, and we'll certainly talk about that and come back with a cost of what it would cost to do that, et cetera.
Okay. Did that answer your question, John?
Yeah, that's making an agenda
Mark?
item to vote on.
Nothing.
Delana?
Just wanted to bring up so that it's on the list as it starts to warm up a little bit here, that curb area over on 4th Avenue Southeast and 6th where it jogs. From that white topping last year, there's that section of about a 2 foot of the curb that goes around the corner there that's broken out. So before we get a lot of rain or anything, I don't know if we have to fix that and then bill the contractor or how that works, but just so it stays on the list for this spring.
Okay.
Anything else? Rex?
No, sir.
Ken?
Yeah, I've got a couple things. The one, Scott, I'll probably be like Rex Winkle bringing this up every council meeting until somebody starts moving on the trails and the dirt down there. You know, that stuff is up out of the ground, I'm sure it's thought out. They could have run tires over that or anything, bust that down so they could get in there. We have about 4 weeks for seeding, and I think they're gonna seed that, from what I understand from Steve. It's not our seeding to do.
It's on Vanderpool to do it.
I don't know how we can get on them, but let's get on them fast enough so they get here and get started, because if they're planning on seeding it in May, it's not gonna work, and we're gonna end up reseeding it in the fall. So I'll keep bringing it up till I see somebody moving down there. The other thing,
Actually, just a point of clarification,
Yeah.
Ken, DOT, and therefore most of our specs, that includes SUDAS, I can't quote off the top of my head what Bolton and Mink put in their specs, but most seeding periods are taken from April 15th to May 30th. It's a 45-day window in the spring between those dates.
I just know that seeding that late, you really don't get the rains that you do when seed likes to grow in cold, damp weather. And, you know, so I would encourage them to be in the front end of that rather than the end of it.
I would agree with you, I'm just saying, it's
No.
part of the contract documents that we have to
Okay.
live with.
Okay.
Yeah.
My other thing I wanted to bring up is the zoning adjustment board, and the mayor has people on there that need to be replaced. We have a situation happening down in the 3rd Ward of a house within a residential area that they're trying to get zoned to allow a speech therapist to put an office in there. And believe me, they have stirred up the neighborhood. I think it's illegal, as Jason has mentioned to me, because it would be spot zoning, and we definitely have an ordinance against that. I think the reason I want to bring it up is this is a very important board. They probably only meet once or twice a year, but they have powers over this city council. And I think it's very important that the people that we appoint to that board not only know their responsibilities, but have some type of a training session so that they're doing this properly. This particular zoning issue involves one of the present board members who is representing the client who wants to put this building in a residential neighborhood. And I don't think she should be representing the person and still be on the board. So I talked to Joe about it, and he says that as long as she doesn't vote, it seems like it would work. But I also was informed by Joe that we have in the past had realtors on that committee, and when you read the fine print, we're not supposed to have realtors on that committee.
Doesn't seem like it.
I can address that.
And so I just want to make the rest of the council aware this is going on. You may get some phone calls. At this point, it's been
You brought up a good,
mute point because the committee can't meet because they don't have a quorum.
you brought up a good point, Ken, and I can address it. First of all, the one you're talking about is stepping down as of this morning. So that eliminates that problem as far as that. The other side of the coin, on this hand over here, we're listening to Joe, it's up to me to appoint all these committees, or get
Yeah, I
somebody on
understand
them.
that.
And according to Joe, I've got to equalize, according to state law, right, Joe? Men and women. I've been chasing women around this town for the last...
That'll be quoted.
For the last 3 or 4 years to get on this committee, to get on these committees. And I'm telling you, it's not easy. It's a hard job. But we're going to continue to keep doing what we're doing, to pacify the Iowa law. And on the other hand, over here, I think your situation has been handled as of this morning.
Good.
Hey, but I have a question. That is not Iowa law. It is a Iowa suggestion. It is not mandatory and it is not law that these boards and committees be genderly equal. Because I know the REC in Sanborn just went up against the state on this very issue. And they went with a 3-panel men board, and it was challenged because there was a woman that wanted to be on it. And unless I got my news right, everybody says that's a law. It is not a law. It is a suggestion from the state that they want gender equal. But if you can't find them, Dick, I agree with you.
It's
Start
not
chasing
easy.
men.
But the point being, did you see my point?
No, I totally understand, but I don't think it's a requirement. Joe, is it a law?
You have to make the effort.
You have to make the effort.
Documented,
I've been doing that.
it's a process.
Right, I think you have to make an effort, but it's not the law.
Okay, well, anyways, that answer your question?
Yeah, my big concern is that this committee is a powerful committee.
It is. And they do have the authority over the council.
Yeah, and the only way you could counteract something they did would be for us to sue and go to court.
No, we're not going to do that. But anyway, we're going to address that, and it will be handled, I'm sure, by the next council.
That's why I asked on the appointments if that committee can move forward for this very reason. We've all received calls on that very issue, so absolutely.
We'll get her going.
Absolutely.
And I know I've already used my turn, but I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the paper for not quoting some of the things out of context that were taken wrong during this meeting. So,
Oh, that's good, because the radio.
yeah. You should do the whole clip.
Do the whole clip.
Joe will talk to me later on that, I'm sure.
Hey, you're doing your job, chases women. Mark, good job.
Anyway,
I've been there, Clark. I've been there, just for a record, I've been there. I've been there.
okay, we're losing control.
No, we've lost
It
control.
is a full.
Okay, is there any other questions?
No, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, you bet. Next is the city administrator, Scott.
We didn't think we were gonna have an annual report, but we do have one from Earl. You wanna present?
Yeah. Earl?
Okay, this annual report is really focused at people outside of this council because basically I'm preaching to the choir here. Lamar's Airport made a mission statement to be effective part of transportation for the city of Lamar's and Plymouth County, to maintain the ability of the city of Lamar's and Plymouth County to be competitive with other cities and counties for new and expansion business opportunities. Next part is, a lot of people will say to me, we don't use the airport. And I will say to them, the airport is part of the transportation system of Lamar's and Plymouth County, much the same as 90% of the people do not use the rail lines. 4-lane highways, paved roads, county roads, which most people don't use, the city street system, and the airport is part of this transportation system. The municipal airport allows the city of Lamar's and Plymouth County to provide air ambulance, agriculture services, corporate transportation for business enhancement and expansion, transient corporate and charter aircraft service providing services for local businesses, to attract new startup business utilizing the transportation system and for recreational aviation. To maintain and improve the viability air portion of the transportation system, the City of Lamar's, in conjunction with the Airport Advisory Committee, Bolton and Mink Engineering, the Federal Aviation Administration, the Aviation Division of IODOT, embarked on a 5-year plan that includes the following: ramp expansion to improve the air agriculture service and improve the ability of the airport to service large corporate aircraft. Runway turnarounds, parallel taxiways to fully utilize the displaced thresholds currently in place. Runway lengthening to 5,000 feet to be able to fit into insurance industry standards for medium-sized and corporate aircraft, thus allowing local industry expansion capability and transient fractional jet operation to operate in and out of the municipal airport. We have done our riverbank stabilization. It is completed. Removal of trees and obstacles from intruding to the instrument approach safe zones, and the purchase of land to ensure instrument approach to safe zones remain clear of obstacles. Certifying our approach systems to alleviate the requirements to purchase additional land or easement for safe zones. Remodeling of the current airport terminal, security fencing, updating current lighting system to be energy efficient, and continue the preventative maintenance of airport infrastructure of hangars, pavements, and runway lighting. And right now, all of our hangars are filled. Anything else?
Good, Earl.
Good, thanks, Earl.
You say-
One thing, could you explain to them the process we're going to use to identify the approach slope on the south end for the south approach to eliminate the need to deal with those trees in that property?
We're hoping it eliminates the need for that. We're going to have an engineering company come in and certify our approach system with survey equipment, because we have to have the FAA to fly these approaches, and they certify it at that time. If our lights were out of service at that time, they would not certify it. It costs $7,500 for us to get them to certify it anymore. So I want them certified before we spend $7,500.
And will that handle the tree situation?
If we do what the regs say, and if FAA sees it that way when we submit the information, it will take care of the problem.
Take care of that problem?
Now, there's a couple of ifs there, so we got to still play our cards right.
When the FAA says, one hand says you can do it, the other hand doesn't always say that's okay.
I understand that.
We've noted that.
Yeah.
But we just went through a tree ordinance, and I know exactly what you're talking about. When you and I sat down, Earl, could we add some verbiage in that ordinance where, okay, we've put it in parking, and I don't want to get too complicated, but if it interferes with the city's well-being, shouldn't the city have some authority to require a tree removed?
Jason, did you ever check that ordinance out? I know at one time you thought maybe our ordinance was enough that we could require that taken out.
I mean, it's interfering with the city, and it could potentially cost the city a lot of money because someone doesn't want to take a tree down. I would think we would have some authority.
We can investigate that.
It's out of my pay grade, I know that.
Because I agree with Earl, you know, we got a situation there that I think it needs to be handled.
And we're putting our foot forward on the rivers thing, which we
You
just
bet.
accomplished on our,
It's done.
it's a done deal.
It's a done deal.
So, we got that done.
The final thing is, we do have a meeting set up with the DOT and the FAA on, help me with the date.
April
April
22nd.
20th, I think it is, or
April
21st.
22nd.
Or
22nd, it should be a Tuesday, I think. But anyway, we're gonna go down to Des Moines, and the Iowa Aviation Conference is going on that Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday. And a couple of us are only gonna spend Tuesday long enough to sit through the meeting like we have the last, I believe, 2 or 3 consecutive years.
3.
And still further the process as far as our master plan and the CIP that we are hoping to do at the airport.
That is correct.
So the
And-
mayor, myself, and Earl with our consultant are all going to be there.
And Bruce Antel.
And Bruce on, which is the...
And this is very important. It really helps us deal with the FAA when we show that the city is interested and progressive on our airport. That face-to-face is very important in case somebody objects.
Yeah, and the advisory committee did meet approximately a week or 10 days ago, and we did hear some good news that the FAA has flipped over to the approval side of the number of
400 feet.
operations to and from our site.
Yes.
And it is sufficient to justify a longer runway. Prior to this time, that has not been approved.
That's correct. We now also have an extra little nail in our kit. We got a citation at 7 that's flying in on a regular basis.
Okay, any other questions for Earl? Earl, thanks a lot, appreciate it, keep up the good work. Scott, do you have anything?
Yeah, a couple of other things. I did last week, Wednesday, attend the RPA TAC meeting. I don't know when the policy is meeting, John, but that's probably coming up soon, I would guess. But the TAC committee did meet, and City of Lamar's has been awarded an additional $316,000. And if you recall, exactly a year ago, we were awarded $284,000. Those two go together because it's for the same project. It is the project that in January you approved, I think it was the second meeting in January, to go after additional funds for that Central Avenue location. It is Central Avenue from 3rd North to 3rd South, right through the downtown. And it is a white topping. It is slated, last year's award was for 2017, and this year's award is for 2018. And some word is going to go up from the Simcoe and the TAC committee to the DOT to see if those need to be brought into the same federal fiscal year. So don't be surprised if the 2017 gets blended with the 2018, all in 2018. We found that out on the rec trail funding. That was actually awarded to your city here, one chunk in 1 year and the bigger chunk in another year. We had to bring those into the same fiscal year in order to do the project. And I told the group last week, I'm pretty comfortable that we'll have to probably do it again on this STP project. But anyway, the good news is we can count on 600,000, assuming it goes through the policy and ultimately through the DOT commission, but 600,000 for Central Avenue. CDBG Advisory Committee did meet with Peter Franks. He's our architect on that project for CDBG downtown. And I do want to announce that they're at a point, the architect, that is, are at a point that they have reviewed all the properties, have analyzed the properties for a good, better, best type of project scope, and they are formulating a recommended set of work items for each building that's in the project. Of the 40 buildings that we applied to CDBG for, it looks like we're going to be no more than 35, and we still have a couple of unknowns. So it's greater than 30, but less than 35. So we will not attain 40 properties on this project. All 500,000 is still eligible for whatever reduced number of buildings that it is. So we can simply, if there's adjustments in the cost estimates, or if there's adjustments in the scope of work, we can still perhaps afford it because some of the properties are out. The dates that the architect are going to be in Lamar's is a night meeting on the 15th of April, 7 p.m. in this room to go through some of the more general scope issues and the requirements of the CDBG and the requirements of the historic preservation. So the architect doesn't want to state that 30 to 35 times at individual meetings. He's going to call the people in and hopefully bring everybody on the same page, kind of on a global picture on that night. Then the following 2 days, the 16th and 17th, Christy Collins will work with the architect on setting up individualized meetings with each of the property owners in half-hour increments on that Wednesday and Thursday, the 16th and 17th, so that each individual property owner will have an individual session with the architect. And it'll be at that date and time that the architect will go through the scope items for their building and what he is predicting the cost for the scope is.
Do you have a time for that night meeting?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. 7 o'clock.
And is that for just the building owners, or?
It's going to be a public meeting, but the building owners are going to get an individual invite.
Okay.
If there's public that's interested, that's fine too.
Scott, also the design committee is also requesting that Mid-American get involved on each one to see if there's any potential rebates as the building owners evaluate the various options that they look at for the project, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'll pass that on to Pete.
Is there a cutoff date to when a new business can say, hey, I like what I see?
You mean for those that have not already signed?
Yeah, like your
The
30 to 35, your people in there in.
We have 30 that have signed the easement. There's 2 criteria. They needed to sign the easement granting that first 24 inches of their building to the city so that these federal and state dollars can be spent on that private property. So they have to sign the easement, and then secondly, they have to give 25%, 1/4
Right.
of what the property owner's cost in the project's going to be. So they have to do those 2 things, and I believe we have 30 of those that have done both, sign it and pay. And the difference between 30 and 35, those property owners are being contacted by Christie for one final yes or no. You got to decide whether you're in or out. And we need that by the 15th.
Okay. So there is a cutoff date because.
Ultimate cut, if they don't say yes or no by the 15th, it's going to be presumed they're out.
They're before that meeting with the architect?
Yes.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
Yes.
You have to say that, yes, they have to come up with the 25%.
Yep.
Thank you, John. But, yeah, it's got to be more than just verbal.
Right.
We need an easement and we need the payment.
Curiosity, have they come up with a time period they're aiming at? I mean, in the design, I mean, 1920s, I mean, the overall concept. I'm just kind of anxious to hear if they, 1940s, 1950s, 1980s.
That's a little bit of a fallacy to pick a date.
Okay.
So the architect is refraining from doing that, and the historical people from Main Street, the historical people in the Iowa State Historical Society, they look at it as historical significance.
Okay.
And so he gave one example to the committee that the building's inception was 1891. He said, we are not going back to 1891 on that building. We are going back to the time frame when that building looks similar to the way it looks today. And so that date happened to be for that building in the 1920s.
Okay.
But I don't want people to leave that we're aiming for the 1920s. because each individual building will be looked upon as its own historical significance.
Okay. Okay.
It's getting way more than I want to know. Tell you the truth. Wastewater treatment. Good news, all the motor control centers are in Lamar's. Many of those are getting installed as I speak. Further complications on the boring across the expressway. The second bore is in and under both lanes, but got stuck 91 feet short of where it needed to be on the east side of the right-of-way. As you remember, I had reported that the first one got stuck underneath the lanes. That was just totally unacceptable to both us as well as the DOT, so that one had to be abandoned in place. This one is salvageable, and what the engineers for the contractor have suggested is an open cut on the east side of the right-of-way for the expressway. DOT, first blush, turned that idea down, but upon insistence that what are we going to do, it isn't working, and 300 and some feet are inside the ground. Can't we finish it? DOT has suggested that an independent engineering firm needs to be hired by the contractor to submit a finite plan to the DOT to obtain a permit to finish it on an open cut. And we think that's the direction it's going, but it hasn't sifted all the way through the approval process yet.
Are we talking down by McDonald's?
Out by the
No.
bypass.
Oh, out by the bypass, okay.
Scott, is this part of the contractor bid, or is this considered out of scope?
Bolton and Mink and city staff all feel that it is in the contract, and the obligation is solely on the shoulders of the contractor. As with many legal issues, Joe has told us, anybody can argue anything, or he actually says it a little differently, but the contractor is looking at it a little bit differently.
I'm sure.
And so a request is coming in from the contractor for the city consideration to help pay for some of this. It has been denied so far, and we're going to be talking about that at the next progress meeting.
How deep is that cut?
I've asked the same question, and it sounds fairly deep because of the severe embankment that the bypass was built on. And if you really go to that section of the expressway, it is right through a valley. So it is in a fairly major fill area. And although it's underneath the slab, it is not out from underneath the embankment. So the foreslope that creates the embankment, the foreslope is fairly substantial right there. Had it not been the case, if it was at or beyond the toe of slope, it would have been much more reasonable a cut in order to do the open dig. What's crucial about that 48-inch casing, is to receive both of the carrier pipes sending untreated wastewater to the new plant and treated wastewater back. Literally, the water's going out to get treated, coming right back to get blended with your current plant so that we can still enjoy one discharge permit, which was the critical scope of the whole project. So we do need both of those pipes, and so this is a critical component. I think I told you last time, instead of waiting for the telemetry that is needed between the two plants to set up everything, to control the motor control centers, et cetera, that pipe, which was a 2-inch inner duct, because it was just going to handle fiber, that has been pulled out of the 48-inch. A separate directional bore has been accomplished, and is a done deal. And so we have telemetry between the two plants, and so therefore, any and all calibration of the motor control centers, the controls of all kinds can be done. Now, there's still, training can't exactly happen because there's no flow. So there's still an issue that the final startup can't happen until those two other conduits, or not conduits, but pipelines get through there. I think they're both 14-inch. So
What are they running into on these bores? What, 2 times? I mean, that's,
Clay.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's typical soil conditions that certainly should have been expected. And if need be, the contractor had full access to test those soils. And the contract documents, the specifications, were written to allow that at the contractor's desire. So if they felt they needed additional information about the subsurface soil conditions, they had the free right and ability to do that if they needed it. So,
Scott, how does that work? Do they just lay those pipelines in the casing, or is there somehow supported, or it's not backfilled in any way, it's inside the casing?
yeah, it would. Sand was going to be blown in to fill the angular space
Okay.
from the 48-inch diameter to the two 14-inch.
Okay.
And the pipes are up to the property line of the highway on both sides, right?
Nominally, yes. I mean, I don't know if it stops 10 feet or 50 feet
But
short.
close enough. So-
It's to the expressway on both sides.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Driven out there.
And we have a fully functional system. Delana, you brought that up. We did have the catastrophes out there by Dean Foods. The lift station for the combining of Dean Foods with Wells Dairy South Plant occurred right there at Lincoln by Dean Foods on the north side. So that's what all that construction was. That is a lift station. And there is another force main from that point to the splitter structure at the wastewater plant. And that pipeline is in, it's been tested. They found a couple of leaks, they fixed those. So it's a functional system. The motor control centers did come and they worked on those first. So that is a fully functional system that is going to get started very soon. One email I saw was this week, another one said next week, so it's either this week or next, that's going to get fired up. And so that'll start operating the way it's supposed to very soon.
So is that all gravity to Dean's and then force main to the old wastewater, the existing wastewater plant?
Yes, gravity down to Dean's, yes, and then force main by a pump up to the treatment plant. And then through the splitter boxes where Ron and the rest of your operators can decide on a daily, hourly basis whether 50% goes new plant and 50 old, or if it's 60-40, or any other combination of numbers. So it will be your operators deciding how much goes where. And so that'll control odors, that'll control the efficiencies at both plants by the direction of the water to one plant or the other. So,
But it's not gonna be done until the DOT approves an engineer that hasn't been hired, and the engineer draws plans which haven't been done, and the people do the plans after the DOT approves it.
all that's correct, except some of it is already in progress.
Right, but does DOT know that it's DNR that wants this whole thing built and all this kind of stuff, right? They know that, right?
Do they
Or do they care?
They've been cooperating.
I don't know how to answer that.
They have been cooperating.
Okay, I just,
Better move on to the next topic.
that's okay. I don't really need an answer. Or respect it, I guess.
That's all I have for open.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Bill?
The only thing I want to add is our leaf and grass site, we're into April now, our leaf and grass site will be open starting tomorrow night. It's 2 to 6 on Wednesday and 10 to 2 on Saturday. It is weather permitting, so if they can't get in there, we'll have to close it off. But we plan this to be open tomorrow night. So
Okay,
that's all I got.
thank you. Okay, this ends our meeting. We're going to be going into closed session right after this meeting.
What's that?
I entertain a motion for
Okay.
closed session.